Picture this. You are a farmer. You have been walking for 3 weeks, your feet are bleeding, your rations ran out days ago. You are marching to the northern frontier because the government ordered you to fight. Then it rains. Not a drizzle, a storm. The roads turn to mud. Rivers flood. Your entire unit gets stuck. By the time you reach the garrison, you are 2 days late. The officer checks his records, looks up at you, and says 6 words that change everything. Late arrival is punishable by death. You stand there, exhausted, starving, covered in mud, and you realize something. If you are going to die anyway, you might as well die fighting back. So you do not report for duty. You and 300 other farmers run into the countryside, arm yourselves with farm tools and stolen weapons. You expect the imperial army to crush you within days, but they do not come because something unexpected is happening everywhere. Other conscript units hear about your rebellion, and they think, if those farmers chose death over service, maybe the system really is broken. Some desert, some mutiny, some just stop marching. Within weeks, there are a dozen rebel bands scattered across the provinces. Not coordinated, not organized, just desperate people who made the same calculation you did. The Qin government responds exactly as the system dictates. They send armies, execute families of deserters, punish local officials. Every response is correct, according to the rules, but every response makes it worse. Because punishing officials makes them desperate. Desperate officials start hiding problems or joining the rebels themselves. Because executing families turns deserters into permanent enemies, men who have nothing to lose. Because sending armies to crush one rebellion means pulling troops from somewhere else, which creates new rebellions. It is like trying to put out fires by adding gasoline. 3 months after that rainstorm, there are rebel armies in 12 provinces. 6 months later, the imperial court is burning. Not because the rebels were brilliant, but because the system had no way to de-escalate. No safety valve, no room for mistakes. It only had one response to problems: more pressure. And when pressure is your only tool, eventually something breaks. The Qin Dynasty lasted 15 years. 15 years of perfect organization, perfect laws, perfect control. Then it rained at the wrong time, and the empire discovered that perfect systems shatter. They do not bend. The collapse did not surprise anyone. Officials sent warnings, advisors proposed reforms, but fixing the rigidity meant admitting it existed. And no one wanted to admit that. So they kept tightening, kept enforcing, kept applying pressure, right up until the moment it all came apart. That is how perfect systems die. Not from external shocks, but from their inability to absorb them. After Qin fell, China spent 4 years in chaos. But underneath the violence, 2 main factions emerged. They represented 2 completely different ideas about how to run a country. One side was led by Xiang Yu, tall, strong, aristocratic, undefeated in battle. His plan was simple: restore the old noble families, give power back to regional lords. The other side was led by Liu Bang, middle-aged, no famous ancestors, a minor official from nowhere. But Liu Bang understood something Xiang Yu did not. You cannot run an empire by trusting only the right families. There are not enough of them. So Liu Bang made a different offer to everyone. Serve the state, get rewarded, kill enemies in battle, earn land, rank. The more you contribute, the higher you rise. Xiang Yu's army fought for honor. Liu Bang's army fought for a future. Guess which one won? Near the end, Xiang Yu was surrounded, outnumbered, trapped on a hillside. Then one night he heard singing, folk music from his home region. thousands of voices, all singing the songs of his homeland. He turned to his officers. "Have they already taken Chu?" No one answered. Liu Bang had not taken Chu, but he had recruited soldiers from Chu, and he ordered them to sing all night, just to break Xiang Yu's spirit. It worked. The next morning, Xiang Yu tried to break through, failed, and killed himself rather than surrender. The message was clear. Even your own people have switched sides, because we offer them something you cannot, a future. That became the foundation of the Han Dynasty. Not ideology, just a deal. Opportunity in exchange for loyalty. But Liu Bang inherited the Qin system, the same centralized bureaucracy, the same structure that just collapsed. Everyone remembered what happened to Qin. So the new rulers made a choice. Keep the skeleton, change the muscles. The laws stayed on the books, but enforcement became flexible. A drought wipes out the harvest. Local officials can delay taxes. Bandits attack. The governor arms civilians. A magistrate takes bribes but keeps the roads safe. Maybe he keeps his job. It was not about kindness. It was about sustainability. Qin treated the empire like a military campaign. Every order had to be followed. Every failure punished. Han treated it like a farm. You push when the soil is ready. You rest when it is not. For 60 years, the Han government did almost nothing dramatic. Taxes dropped, regulations eased. If you read histories of this period, they are boring because nothing exciting happened. But that was the achievement. The empire was healing. And while it recovered, it grew. Population doubled. Farmland expanded. The treasury filled. Meanwhile, up north, nomadic tribes invaded. Fast, brutal. They had been watching China tear itself apart. Liu Bang personally led an army north. It was a disaster. They lured him into a trap. For 7 days, the Emperor of China sat on a frozen mountain, waiting to die. He barely escaped, and everyone expected him to raise another army, seek revenge. Instead, he agreed to pay tribute. Every year, gold, silk, even a princess sent north. The court was furious. This was humiliation, but Liu Bang saw it differently. Our army is exhausted. Our treasury is empty. If we fight now, we lose. So we pay. We buy time. And when we are ready, we stop paying. It was not a surrender. It was an investment. For 60 years, China paid tribute. And for 60 years, the nomads thought they were winning. They were not. They were giving the empire exactly what it needed: space to recover. By the time Emperor Wu took power, everything had changed. The treasury was full, the army was rested, he stopped paying, sent armies north, and crushed them. The wars that followed revealed something important about the system. Soldiers were no longer conscripts, they were volunteers, competing for rank. A soldier could join as a peasant, kill enough enemies, earn a noble title, get land, get wealth, things he could pass to his children. For the first time in history, a farmer's son could become a lord through results. This drove the old aristocracy insane. Their titles meant nothing anymore, but the system did not care. It cared about results. Han armies pushed further than any Chinese force in history, not because the soldiers were braver, but because they had more to fight for. Still, conquest has limits, so the empire found another way to expand. Through trade, envoys went west with silk and goods. They returned with information about distant kingdoms, trade routes stretching to the edges of the world. Roads were built, merchants protected, a network formed, silk moving west, horses moving east, ideas flowing both ways. Later, people would call it the Silk Road, but all of this cost money. So taxes went up, Industries were nationalized. Salt, iron, alcohol. Small merchants were squeezed out, replaced by government operations. But the empire also needed legitimacy, a story to explain why it controlled everything. This is when Confucianism entered the picture. Not because the emperor believed in it, but because it was useful. Confucianism taught that the emperor ruled by heaven's mandate, that loyalty to the state was loyalty to the universe itself. It was brilliant propaganda. Within a generation, you could not get a government job without memorizing Confucian classics. The laws stayed harsh underneath, but now they were wrapped in moral language, and for a long time, it worked. But systems that succeed also fossilize. The military merit ladder started narrowing. Land concentrated in fewer hands, bureaucratic positions became hereditary. The small farmers who paid taxes and filled armies were disappearing, replaced by massive estates owned by the powerful. This created a problem. The whole system depended on those farmers. Without them, there was no tax base, no recruits, no food. Officials proposed reforms, redistribute estates, break up monopolies, but every reform threatened someone powerful. And powerful people do not give up power quietly. So the reforms failed again and again. By the end of the Western Han, the system that once absorbed ambition was clogged. Finally, someone tried to force change. A Confucian scholar seized power, announced sweeping reforms, abolish slavery, redistribute land. On paper, it looked like justice. In reality, it was chaos. Landlords refused, merchants stopped trading, officials sabotaged everything. Within years, rebellions broke out everywhere. The reformer was killed. His dynasty lasted 14 years, the same length as Qin, the same fate, because he made the same mistake. He tried to impose perfection on a messy reality. The empire that promised merit over birth ended with landlords inheriting everything. The scholars who claimed to serve the people became the ones blocking reform. Flexibility had calcified back into rigidity. The pattern repeats throughout history. When mobility stops, societies destabilize. Because the problem is not poverty. It is blocked ambition. People can endure hardship if they believe their children will do better. But when that hope dies, so does the system. The Western Han left us with a question. Can any system stay flexible forever? Or is rigidity just entropy? Maybe you cannot prevent it. Maybe all you can do is recognize it early and choose to break on your terms before the world does it for you. That is the difference between transformation and collapse. The Western Han waited too long and paid the price, but something survived. An idea. The idea that systems can change, that merit can matter more than birth, that rigid orders can be rebuilt. Once people know change is possible, they never stop trying. That is what the Western Han proved. Not that flexibility lasts forever, but that the attempt matters. Because the cost of trying is always less than the cost of standing still. Always.